Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Harrell. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I know we had like 10 to 15 more views than we have subscribers. So if you're not subscribed and watching us on YouTube, go ahead and do that. If you're new to the show, you can find us on YouTube. We do a video version of every episode. So head over to YouTube. It's a little more fun. Sometimes we get caught up in visual segments. So yeah, YouTube is a great way to enjoy the show. And again, thank you so much if you're new to the show, because it appears that we are getting a few new listeners out there. So that's really great, and we're super happy about that. It's season 4. Once again, we are brought to you by Two Men in a Garden here at the Midtown Madness Podcast. Pete, I consume a lot of internet content, and I am so tired of hearing about the grocery subscription services that where they have the recipes and everything. And they talk about how cheap it is for you. And that's just not true. That's ridiculous. We aren't going to sell you some useless subscription service that sends you a new meal curated by Gordon Ramsay. No, we are here for salsa and salsa only. And that's Two Men in a Garden salsa. It's local. It tastes amazing. They've got all the flavors to suit your individual salsa preferences. You can pick up their many products at any local grocery store or online at twomeninagarden.com, which, if you're particular about your salsa preferences, that's where you want to go. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, we have a ton to go over today. And it's wild because there is so much more to talk about, because we have so many openings within the program now as well, and so much news about who could potentially fill those positions.
Yeah, Zach, it's incredible. I mean, we have a huge show, like you said, after a week with so much basketball news. The hardest part right now is preparing these notes, right? And deciding what order to actually do this in. Because we have news about coaches, we have news about returning players, about departing players, about recruits. We've got everything this week, but rest assured, we will cover it all. So please, everybody, stick with us today, because it's going to be drinking from a fire hose, as they say.
Yeah, this has to be your really bread and butter, because where my fandom is about, the gear, the merchandise, the
game day promotions.
Yeah, the game day promotions, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. You really are the recruiting guy. That's where your kind of nerdiness lies when it comes to Billiken basketball.
Yeah, I started doing that about a decade ago. Cruz was still the head coach when I started really following it closely. And I got to say, in the last 6 months or so, I've just kind of tailed off, right? Because SLU wasn't putting many offers out there. When we did, I would cover those, but I wasn't following who the coaches were, starting to follow on Twitter. I wasn't paying all that much of attention to other recruits coming in and out of the A-10. I was just kind of I don't think this staff's going to be around much longer. They don't seem to be recruiting all that hard. So I'm just going to kind of take a step back from this stuff, and whatever I catch, I catch. And so that's where I've been. But now I've had to readjust, right? Because now there's all of this information coming at me, and I've had to completely recalibrate and figure out how I'm going to squeeze in all the time that I used to spend on this stuff, on the recruiting stuff. So that's been the tricky thing for me, especially when I can't just spend a whole weekend afternoon on it. I've got 2 kids. I coach my son in soccer. He had 2 games this weekend, and just I could feel my phone buzzing in my pocket whenever something would happen.
First off, this week, we knew Josh Schertz was confirmed the head coach as of the recording last week, but we hadn't got to the press conference portion of kind of the events, and unfortunately, it wasn't the level of Kentucky for an introductory press conference. Now, I think I need to really get at Chris May here, because how could you how could you miss on an opportunity to sell out Chaffetz Arena?
I know, I know, I know. Well, number one, Zach, I warned them about this. They did it the same day as the eclipse. All right, so they were competing with what for a lot of people will be a once in a lifetime opportunity. I went, by the way, I went an hour north to a state park just north of Miami University, Ohio, and it was incredible. It was like it was way beyond anything that I expected it to. I've seen a partial eclipse before, but seeing the actual totality of an eclipse. Sorry, Josh Schertz, but I missed the press conference for good reason, and I think probably a lot of other people in and around St. Louis did too. But yeah, we also, Zach, we couldn't compete with Kentucky because I think I saw that they took the entire 1996 championship team and they came in to Rupp Arena on a bus, came out of the bus, and Mark Pope was the last one off holding the trophy. And I don't think SLU could have pulled something like that either.
No, we could have maybe had Josh Schertz driving in a beer truck like he's Stone Cold Steve Austin. That would have been great.
That would have been great. That would have been great. Maybe the Clydesdales coming in with the
Yes,
Clydesdales.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. No, it was very cool to see the press conference. I mean, obviously you had some of that. I talk about all the time how like just listening to the formalities and the kind of the glad handing in the speech, it really
Sure.
just kind of turns me off of it. So it was a little cringy for a lot of it. I had to kind of choke down the entire thing, which is sad to say, but like that's just how I feel about these kind of uh formal presentations. I guess we can go through West Pine, currently the West Pine Shirts posting bills, not West Pine Bills right now.
Yeah.
They followed it on Twitter, Pete.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
So I guess should I go through them or do you want to, how do we
No,
want to do this?
go through them. Go through them.
All right. So, Chris May, joked that Josh Schertz has been the fastest onboarding in the history of St. Louis University. That was better than the Saturday Night Live weekend update with Caitlin Clark. I'm just gonna say it. That was a better joke. Fred Postello. The one thing this is where I really cringed because of course, Postello thanked Ford for elevating the program. I kind of had to choke that one down. But he got nice reviews for his speech overall. And people have said that, he is a very, very good orator. In his litany of thank yous, gives Stu Durando a particular shout out for how he covered the search and for all of the no comments the press have to put up with in recent weeks. Postello sold Josh Schertz to the moon, outlines his Schertz as the coach to put St. Louis University consistently appear in the NCAA tournament. Chris May outlined what they were looking for: consistent winner, integrity, trust, who believes that Billiken basketball can be elite on a national level. Many people said Josh Schertz is your guy, including the SLU Twitter think tank. I just want to put that one out there. He said he's one of the best in relationship building in college basketball. Pete, I don't think the people down or up in Terre Haute, Indiana would agree with the middle two there. Do you?
No, I think a lot of them are still pretty salty.
And then of course, Josh Schertz got the mic, said his son is transferring with him from SLU or to SLU. I'm not sure why it's not getting the same attention as Tucker DeVries coming with Darian. That's a pretty good one. I was talking about this, and we'll get to the KMOX interview because he had a great line. I thought, or he had a great joke in that interview. But you and I doing these episodes, you realize how often that one of us will like test out a joke 100 times before like coming to this show and saying it again for the first time on recording.
Yeah.
So like when he says that joke about like not sure why it's getting the same attention, I just assume he's been workshopping that joke since he started negotiating jobs.
Yeah, chuckling to himself on a little yellow legal pad.
Josh Schertz on the SLU head coaching job. This was my favorite part of the way he talked about it. He said, it's your guys, fans and former players program. I'm merely the steward. I
Mhm.
love that because we've talked a lot about it. And we're going to get into it because he also says he goes into a little more, but I really like the idea that he is, it, we're coming off a program that was using the term team blue as if that was the basketball culture team, whatever you want to call it. And I like that he is more it's that servant attitude, I think, that I kind of like.
I agree. He said some things when he left Indiana State that I liked as well that kind of fit into that same mentality of being a caretaker of the program. And one of his points was to not just do the best job he can do while he's there, but to leave the place in better shape than when he got there, right? So it's like the campsite rule when you go to a national park or something. It should be in better shape, in the same or better shape than it was when you showed up, right? Like that's the idea, to kind of just to keep the place clean and in good shape. And he said now, I know it's new and Indiana State fans may have their own opinions there, and they
Oh
can,
boy, do they have
well,
opinions?
and he said, and they can be the ones who make up their mind there. But I would say they just hired his associate head coach, right, to kind of keep that momentum going. And even though they're going to have a lot of new players, I think it's still a much more attractive place now than it was when he showed up and they were in the basement of the valley. So that's something important to keep in mind. It just I think he has a consistent approach with this, and it's not like he's come to a new school and is saying a completely different set of things. And there are plenty of college basketball coaches who do tend to do that.
Um, Josh Schertz on Rick Majerus, and I always thought, like, I kind of joked about it. Obviously, I don't love the pairing of the two, like overt pairing of the two. I just think
Yeah,
that's placing a little much on this hire
sure.
and Josh Schertz. But he said obviously we share an affinity for food, cool sweaters, and hairdos, which he talks about observing Rick Majerus' camp back in the day in Salt Lake City. Yeah, he talked about scraping up money, and I think we'll probably talk about it some more, but he went and learned under Rick Majerus for 14 days living in the dorms. Uh, Josh Schertz said about the SLU job, it checked all the boxes. We want all of our students to have an exceptional academic experience while also pursuing championships. He made a claim on the city. We are St. Louis's team, which I like, but I think you have to, and we'll talk about it, or I tweeted about it actually, is like the athletic department says they can say it all they want, but you have to believe it. You have to do things that, you have to be, again, a servant to the city. I think you have to be out in that community and, you know, have relationships with the kids, the youth in maybe more troubled areas. You need to try to do what you can to better the city as well. So I hope that continues and is followed through on.
Yeah.
Um, he said, when you connect the program with the community, that's when the magic happens. Our job is to give people here a group of players they want to support and get behind. And like I said, I think you got to support and get behind the city as well. Josh Schertz on the type of team he has: fast-paced offense, guys who play for each other. People want to win and be entertained, and we intend to do both of those. I think that's exciting to hear from your head coach. And it's something he's done before. Whereas when you look back at the Ford press conference, you can kind of say, well, kind of didn't play fast, but we can try.
Right.
Let's see. Josh Schertz on how he builds a program. There's no shortcut to it. The magic is always in the work. That sounds familiar, Pete. You have to roll your sleeves up and do it. We're not for everybody. His program slogan, Kaizen, and how it came to be. All these coaches have cool slogans. I didn't have a cool slogan. It's a Japanese term for commitment to continual improvement. It's the core of Josh Schertz's belief and process as a coach. And that's about it from Schertz. What did you think overall about the press conference?
Well, I was again, it was eclipse day and I was taking in the eclipse. So I did not take in the whole thing. I watched some clips from it. I read the recaps and I think overall I would say it's just positive, right? I mean, like you knew it was going to be a lot of the president and board and all of the people who have to speak in the beginning doing their thing. And like there was nothing new or surprising there. It was fine. I think he's a really likable guy. I think he's got a really warm presence. He's good on the mic. He's self-deprecating. He just really seems to get it, right? Like he seems to get where we are as a program. He seems to have a vision for it. And I really like the energy he brings. Now, I spent a lot more time, not with this press conference, but I read a book that was written about him 9 years ago when he was at Lincoln Memorial in D2. And
hold on, Pete. How long did it take you to read this book?
Oh, this thing was easy. I don't think it even took me an hour and a half. It was 122 pages.
I haven't read a book in I don't think I've read 120 pages in the last year, dude.
Zach, I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. You are free to edit that out.
I've told people I'm illiterate. Nobody believes me.
Well, yeah, I mean, trust me, they will someday. No, but so I read that book. I read the long piece on him in the Athletic. Not too long, but a good profile in the Athletic. So I really learned a lot about him that way. So by the time that I was rewatching some of the clips later this week, because missed it on Monday from the press conference, I kind of knew where he was coming from, and I had a lot of those impressions from what his life was like, how he builds programs, how he works, those kind of things, to sort of inform my opinions of him when I saw him talking, right? So it's hard to kind of remove those from one another. Whereas a lot of, like, if a more casual fan saw part of the press conference, may have a totally different impression, but everything about him feels like the right thing to me. So my impression is just positive.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I do want to get into, and we talked about it last episode, and I think we've talked about it a little bit more than that, but Schertz kind of talked about building a career here and a place he could stay. And I mean, that's something every coach says everywhere they go. So I don't really need to hear that or want to hear that. I don't care is my point. Like it's a nice sentiment, but again, if you come in here, you get us to 2 NCAA tournaments and Bolton 3 years, you get us to 1 NCAA tournament, Bolton 2 years. Wonderful. Like, we'll find the next guy. And again, that goes back to the way he talked about how he's just a steward of the program. I think that's more in line with really where I'm at with head coaching in college basketball.
Yeah, I mean, and whether he's here for 2 years or 20 years, I think I believe him when he says he wants to leave a program in better shape than when he found it. I think he's got the ability to do that. But watching him take Indiana State all the way through the NIT is kind of living proof of that's kind of how he operates. A lot of other coaches would have said, it's the NIT. I've got an associate head coach. I'm going to go get paid. Nice knowing you all. Like that's a much different approach that he took. And that's what kind of makes me believe him. So I think, yeah, there's some truth to what you're saying. But I'm confident that whether it is 2 years or 20 years, and most likely somewhere in between, but I think he's the right guy at the right time, and I'm confident will be an attractive job whenever he does leave, and for whatever reasons he does leave.
Yeah, I think my point is more or less it's great if he stays.
Oh, if he wants to be our Mark Few, be our Mark Few.
Yeah,
I'll be your biggest fan for life if you want to do that. If you want to stay here and win and turn us into a powerhouse, you and I are the last people who are going to slow that down.
I mean, the numbers are going up every time I look at our like our podcasting platform. So
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. If Schertz keeps winning, I will again. I'll back him all the way if he keeps winning.
Yeah.
Um, anything else really? I don't think anything. I
No,
mean, it
no,
just
I
kind
think
of.
that's good. I think there were probably more takeaways from the next event.
Well, we saw Rick Majerus was in the building for the press dude. I like I said, I didn't want
Yeah.
to be weird, but that was Rick
Z-
Majerus.
So Zach is referring to somebody took a shot of one of the back rows in the introductory press conference, and Gibson Jimerson was there, and was
Corey Tate was there,
Corey Tate
yeah.
was there, and there was a guy on the far end of the row in front of him who, from the profile, did look like a little bit slimmer, Rick Majerus. And there was a guy at the end of his row, by the way, on the other end of the row, who looked a little like Larry David, which I thought was pretty funny. But nonetheless, yeah, the ghost of Rick Majerus seems to approve of this hire.
Um, a really nice one-off kind of live show with Coach Schertz. Thursday the 11th at Humphreys. It was also broadcast on KMOX. Um, this was kind of interesting to see. Just in kind of from the aspect of Humphreys was, partially, has investment from Travis Ford. So I mean, there's really no reason to not kind of look past everything and just kind of roll with it. That
Hmm.
would kind of be a dumb decision from all parties involved here.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the campus bar, you know.
yes, yes. And by the way, I had the Ragin' Cajun chicken sandwich. It was delightful. It's delightful.
So
Uh,
they didn't come out with a wagon of pizza rolls or anything for this one.
no pizza rolls, just the menu, which the menu is big. I'm always the fan of smaller menu.
I still haven't eaten there.
So it's all right. There's certainly not the chicken strips and fries of the original Humphreys
Yeah.
menu, but kind of what I'll let you kind of roll with this one because to be honest with you, I could not hear a damn thing.
Even though you were in the front row.
Well, I was in the front row for like half of it, and then I went back and talked with our good friend Eric Pitlick for the rest
Oh
of
yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
just kind of enjoyed the vibes of the whole thing.
Yeah, so it was certainly a more informal setting, right? I mean, like he I think he even said during his intro press conference that he was not the most comfortable in a suit and tie, and that he was going to stick with the quarter zip in games. A lot of coaches, by the way, love the pandemic ruined a lot of their
Here,
seasons, but they love it for the way
yes.
that it blew open suits, right? Like it just they got rid of them.
Here's what I like about kind of shirts is that it's not so much a casual practice attire.
Hmm.
It's more of like a business casual.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's a little more. I don't know. I like it better. It's a
I think
little more dressed up.
it's more like what a coach looks like when they go visit a recruit in a recruit's home
Mm-hmm.
versus what they look like in practice, right? Like
Right.
there is a spectrum within athleisure or whatever you want to call it.
I
And
do know that.
he does. I know you know that he does have a really kind of comfortable, informal air about him. So he seemed very at home in a place like Humphreys. He says he loves good food and wine, but he's not a snob, which seems right. He likes it all. He finds the good dive spots on the road. He's always looking for local stuff. Regarding that Rick Majerus camp at Utah, it was kind of interesting to hear him talk about that and how that came about and everything. He just said he absorbed as much as he could. He really took note of Rick's attention to detail. And one of the quotes I liked, he said he coached little kids, 8 and 9 year olds, the same way that he would coach Andre Miller or Keith Van Horn.
Well,
And
I would hope not exactly the same way because
he may have had
woo,
a different vocabulary, but in terms of like just how you speak and instruct a kid, I think that's really this is lame, but I try and do that myself, right? I try not to talk down to the 7 to 9 year olds that I coach, and I don't know, that really struck a chord with me. He said most of the staff is set, and we'll get to that later in this show, but he does have a couple spots left to fill. I think that might only be one spot. as of now. He came in with 11 scholarships to fill, and we'll get more on that later too. And that he would be at 10 after another player announced his return. So he gave us a little teaser on Thursday. He said they have 8 visits lined up over the next 12 days, and that, quote, we feel really confident about where we are with a few of these guys. They're targeting June for getting the roster set, but he thinks it'll be earlier than that. Says they've been pleasantly surprised at the number of recruits who are interested and who want to come visit, which is a really promising sign. I bet that's a lot more than he could say at Indiana State in his first season there, right? Like,
I think
now there's already some proof of concept here.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting the way he said that too, because it seems like as much as we can sit here and say that SLU isn't, SLU is a major step up from the bottom of the Missouri Valley in terms of, like, I'm not saying Indiana State is at the bottom of I'm saying budgetarily, resources wise, like I want to know if Indiana State charters planes. Like that to me, like they bus around the Midwest, I would assume, for their
I would imagine most of those Valley games are buses.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like that, even that alone, even though we're going to the East Coast and kind of shitty road trips, like
I don't know, man. I bet you I bet they're taking that trip. It's not quite an hour to the east to get to Indianapolis Airport from Terre Haute. I don't know. I maybe they charter. I don't know, but they wouldn't have to a lot, I guess.
Right. But well, my point was just like I don't know if he even anticipated the step up in just basically resources. Yeah. Like I don't think he might not have realized what SLU, like he knew SLU had resources, but what those resources got him. So like he could have started out recruiting where he's still talking to like dudes that were, solid Valley guys. But then you look at like, I mean, we're going to talk about an A10 guy here soon that may in fact be coming back to the A10, but I think he might have underestimated too the jump in attractiveness of the place to play.
For sure. And what a feeling that's got to be, right? Like to go, oh yeah, like this, now that I'm actually sitting in this chair and I know what I've got in my hands, like this is nice. Like this gives me some more flexibility. He added that they only, or that sorry, not only, but that they have 12 games to fill. Only Illinois State on the road is set. And as much as we all rolled our eyes at that as being a home and home, and we had to make compromises with having to fill out the schedule last year, that's a place that he's played at 3 times. So I don't know. I gotta think that there's something there in terms of being comfortable, and maybe if any of his players follow him to SLU, that they'll be comfortable with that one too.
You got to wonder about kind of the Drake and West Virginia connection.
Yeah,
you got D2 McCollum, who they know, and then you look at West Virginia. Darian DeVries is there now.
Yep.
So I mean,
there's a lot of respect between him and those guys for sure.
Yeah.
And then Dusty May at Michigan, who's such a good friend of his. So
and then maybe FAU where he's
it's all about relationships, and he's got some intriguing ones. In terms of other scheduling tidbits, he just says they're scheduling with an at-large bid in mind. And one of the things that they are trying to line up, he thinks they're going to be in the MTE at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which he referred to, or his quote was, 2 high majors on a neutral floor. They get some pretty good teams at that event.
I would be so excited to hit this one up. Yeah. The Pentagon looks like such a weird ass place.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll get there and be like, oh yeah, this is why you don't put a rectangle shaped peg in a pentagon shaped hole. But nevertheless, I do want to see a game there. This would be fun.
Did I say that? I didn't say this on the podcast. We didn't know about this, but like the Sanford Pentagon is like, it's like going to see a game in a island in a ballroom. Yeah. Did I say that last episode? I feel like
no, you said it to me. You said it to me this week though. You said like that's the
kind that was we were on the phone, and that's why I was confused. We never we don't actually get on the phone.
Yeah.
So it was weird.
Yeah, no, it looks very weird on TV, and it's not the easiest trip for us, but maybe you never know if the timing works out. He said he'll put an entertaining product on the floor for fans to enjoy. He's really big on character, in terms of recruits. He wants to build a team of guys who are easy to cheer for, but the pieces have to fit, and they're going to be exacting and uncompromising about who they build a roster with, which I really appreciated. I think roster building is a thing that we've had a lot of questions about in recent years, and it seems like he's really focused on that, and that he's very thoughtful about the approach on that. So, any other notes from you? As like those were my main takeaways from his comments that I listened back to on KMOX. But for someone in the house, anything besides Humphrey's menu or anything like that?
His shoe game is very good.
Yeah.
I think he is no, he's an interesting guy. I just think like he's at sometimes he seems very like awkward, but also very, very sociable and personable.
Hmm.
Like I don't know what it is about him, but there's something just kind of different in the way he talks, in the way he presents himself. Yeah, no, I guess there were a lot of people there.
Hmm.
I think all the tables up top were full. And Corey Tate was there. It was kind of weird because like the new staff was all sitting at one table. Corey Tate was just kind of hanging, just looking cool as shit though.
Yeah.
Like that dude looks cool in all situations. Sat with Steve Rogers of Sign Guy, Sleuth Sign Guy, owner of Billikens.com. So it was good to see him, good to talk with him. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was tough to hear in there. The first half I kind of sat with Steve and then matriculated back to the back to talk with Eric Pitlick and just kind of shoot the shit. And I think a lot of people were impressed with Josh Schertz.
Good. Good. Yeah, I so far have been absolutely, and like I said, I think that is definitely an environment that serves him well. But it seems like he's making the rounds, Zach. Like he's not just hanging out on campus.
Yeah, Pete. In addition to this seemingly one-off appearance, Schertz doing the tour to St. Louis sports. St. Louis Cardinals first pitch. He threw a nice 12-6 curveball for a
Yeah,
strike.
solid.
He went from the mound too with a full windup, which you get style points for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the City SC game. This was a surprise. I didn't know about it. But he and Tillett both played a part in the pregame ceremonies. Both of them were wearing the city red jerseys. And yeah, Tillett presented the game ball and then Schertz flipped the coin. So
Yeah, and there's also a great shot of them hitting the drum. Like they each
yes,
get to hit the drum in the front of the what do they call the
the
section there with all
supporters section.
okay.
I mean, I don't, the prevailing, supporters group, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, but sometimes the that part of the stadium will have like a different name, right? Like in
Yeah, it
Cincinnati, they
doesn't.
call it the Bailey, where all of the ultras
The
sit.
ultras,
Uh,
as if they're committing atrocities in the name of their soccer team.
give it time.
Jesus.
But yeah, they got to bang the drum, and then there's a good shot of them waving the
That
big
I thought
flag.
that
I
was
thought that's a
cool.
really cool
That was a
photo.
cool shot.
Yeah, so but I mean, think about I know you're not their biggest fan, but think about that group of supporters and how they do like the niche nature, right, of soccer and of MLS and how it's kind of an underdog sport. If they can kind of be won over, right? Like by Slew, like that's a little it's kind of a niche too, right? It's
Well, I think
not the Cardinals.
I see them being won over more by Robbie Avila if he commits.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
I
all of these are all chances to make an impression
right.
in front of a new group of people.
I would say the impression I would be more concerned with is the fans in the stands more than the supporters. I just think SLU being a Jesuit university, a Catholic university, it is niche, but it's niche in like the opposite way of kind of, I mean, obviously Jesuits are on the more, you know, forward thinking side of, or, you know, they're a little more relaxed. We'll call it relaxed, right?
Mhm.
Of Catholicism. But I just feel like the supporters of like the MLS, they feel like they wouldn't connect with, you know, I guess a basketball team, even though it does have St. Louis. I don't know if they'd connect with the school in
So
general.
so then do they need to get out in front of the Battlehawks fans instead?
Absolutely. Get those weirdos. They're both are weirdos of a different breed. I just think, you know, the general sports fan. I
Yeah.
think you
Yeah.
just like the people that are going to the Battlehawks game, and you know, I think Battlehawks are a more casual but serious sports fan, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Whereas the MLS is kind of such a, like, MLS fans are like hockey fans who don't want to root for hockey. Like,
Right.
I don't know. They just feel like they're just, they really fall in love is my point with one thing. And then that becomes their kind of identity.
Yeah. No, I know there's a completely different flavor, but the good thing is they're getting out as in front of as
Yes.
many people as
Agreed.
possible. And
Don't,
I
I don't want to
even
come off as saying like it's a bad thing. It is a great thing. I just
yeah,
think that the other three sides of the stadium are probably the more likely
sure.
customers that they are reaching out to. So
Okay.
I love it. I thought it was cool. The blue doesn't really go with city red, but that's fine. The blue
Yeah. No,
hat.
it's a shame the blue season is just about to come to a close here.
Yes.
But maybe when that starts next season, they can kind of get out, maybe do a puck drop or something before one of those games early in the season.
By the way, if
Uh,
anybody wants to hook me up with a puck drop or presenting of the game ball, I'm open to it. I think it would excite people.
I
Just
mean,
me. Just
you're
me. It would,
you're
the
our
only
number one
person who,
ultra.
yeah, the only person that will excite is me. Nobody else would give a shit.
Uh,
Pete, let's talk about the incoming coaching staff. And it really feels like we are at a hinge point right now in the trajectory of college basketball coaching. And I think Schertz and Billiken basketball is kind of on the first wave of that change.
yeah, I don't disagree with you, but I'm curious to hear exactly what you mean by that.
So with the introduction to NIL, I think we are really heading towards the rise of the basketball nerds.
Hmm.
And you're seeing the McCollums, the Darian DeVrieses, the Josh Schertzes, the I guess who else can we throw in there? I mean, Mark Pope
Sure.
is kind of that.
That's how he's being pitched
Yes,
anyway. Yeah.
yes, he's being pitched as a strategic and X's and O's genius
Hmm.
that you're going to put a bunch of money behind. And I really think that this staff that Josh Schertz has put together kind of follows that trend.
Yeah, I think so. It seems like he's getting guys who are really, really intense
A-
in terms of the way that they break down the game.
And I love that he talks about when he builds his staff, he wants guys that are smarter than him, that are more
Yes.
intelligent than him. I think that's something we saw with Rick Majerus, and I don't think we saw it with Travis Ford necessarily. Like, that wasn't I don't know what his strategy was for hiring. It didn't seem like it just seemed like getting coaches that could do a job.
Yeah, I think if there was one characteristic I would put on his hiring of assistants, it seemed to be that he got the people that he already knew and trusted,
Yeah.
right? Like he wanted to kind of keep it all in the family. And it seems like Schertz wants sort of a brain trust of like people he can really chop it up with and break down plays. So
But
the first
also,
one,
he does know these guys. Let's
sure,
not
sure, sure, sure,
pretend
sure. Yeah,
like this isn't, yeah.
that's completely fair because he has worked with all of one of them so far. The first one we mentioned last week was Zach Bovair. We got
Did
official word on Monday.
do you like how I put it in
I do appreciate the phonetic spelling in the notes.
Because
After
looking back, we did have a little competition on this one.
we did, I think, but you were right about Beauvais. I just wasn't sure.
I think I knew it was gonna be kind of Frenchish.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't the full Boisvert, but it
Yes,
wasn't Boisvert either. So,
yes. I would have
and
never got. I don't think I got Beauvais. I think it was Boisvert, is what I said.
okay. Well, we got the official word on Monday after we got the hint last week, so it confirmed that rumor, and Slew announced it on Wednesday. He did spend a season on Schertz's staff at Indiana State before going to George Washington for the past 2 seasons. He had previous stints at Army, Maine, Iona, Fairleigh Dickinson. He was actually a manager, so he won me over. Fordham class of 2010. We mentioned his YouTube channel last week, right? Like, so the guys are real X's and O's mine, and we would love to be a fly on the wall when he and Schertz are breaking down plays in the office. But Schertz called him as well-rounded as any assistant he's ever had, and called him elite in every area, which you love to hear. It sounds like a great hire.
I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube, not of Beauvair's YouTube channel, but excuse me, of Josh Schertz Indiana State sets.
Mm.
And that was interesting. My new favorite term to make me sound smart is the 45 cut.
All right, I
Yeah.
want to hear you breaking that out when
Yeah.
you see it deployed next season.
Yes, that's the guys, did you see that? That's the 45 cut.
Yes. And yeah, you'll explain when we did it and why it worked and all of that.
Yes.
But Bovair wasn't the only former assistant of his that he added to the staff.
No, he added a couple here. First of all, being Anton Gray, Pete.
Yeah.
Go ahead and you give me these. You
Okay.
know, you're way smarter than me on this stuff. This is where I fall short.
So Gray, as some of the more sleuth-minded sleuth fans pointed out, was actually kind of showing up in the background and in the side of videos and press conferences and photos, but we didn't get the announcement until Wednesday that he was added to the staff.
Antone Gray, sorry,
Antone Gray, right?
Yeah, my
So
fault.
he was on Schertz's staff at Indiana State. Before that, he did a season at Niagara. After 4 seasons at Brown, he started his college coaching career with 4 seasons at Maine. So that's the second guy who did time at Maine, which is a really, really tough place to recruit to, by the way. He also has experience at the high school and AAU level. Schertz called out his recruiting ability and the way he really connects with players. He's got deep relationships in the Northeast, one of the places that this staff plans to recruit from, which makes sense given the geographic breakdown of our conference, and called him really strong in player development as well. So, little bit different skill set than Beauvais. Seems like they're going to be really nice complementary pieces on his staff.
Go ahead and yeah.
Yeah, you want to any comment, or you want me to go to Phil?
No, I mean, I know nothing, Jon Snow or whatever.
Phil Gaetano was his third hiring, originally reported on Tuesday.
What would Phil Gaetano do?
That's right. And it's the name we hadn't heard previously. It was announced by the program on Thursday. He's been with Merrimack since 2018 and helped the program transition to D1 under head coach Joe Gallo. It's a defensive-minded program up there. It's a young staff. They play a zone. West Pine Bills called it a fun zone. I don't know, how fun a zone can be, but we've seen zones work at other programs in the past, like Syracuse or whatever. Gallo had really high praise for him. He congratulated him and Schertz, asking if he could get a game. And Schertz replied, "Only if you agree to play 40 minutes of man-to-man," which I thought was great. And Gallo added that Phil learned from the best and that he likes to Schertz added that Phil learned from the best and said he likes to surround himself, like you said earlier, with people smarter than him. So that's high praise for a young assistant as well. Rob Gardner, another one, also made official on Thursday. He was special assistant to the head coach at Indiana State, and he was an assistant under Schertz at Lincoln Memorial. Then spent a couple years as a recruiting coach at Next College Student Athlete, which is basically a consulting firm for prospective college student athletes and their families.
What is that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a third-party consulting. Like if you've got a high school student who's going to be a college athlete, I think you hire them to kind of help you navigate the process.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I hadn't heard of it before, but
I
it
could have
does.
used that for tennis.
Could you have now?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
seriously.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. I know you played. I know you played.
Okay. Yeah, by the way, Josh Schertz, if you want to hit around,
Oh,
we'll
there
we'll
you
do
go.
we'll do an interview while we play. We'll put on the
The
mics
I mean,
and
the sound will be fantastic on
it
that.
will be great.
So before
Sorry.
before LMU, Gardner was an assistant at Ashland University for 8 years after serving as a grad assistant at Wright State. So the way it is now, you can call up to 5 people assistant coach, but like before, you can only call 3 of them, or you can only designate 3 of them as recruiting assistants. And apparently, multiple of these guys are non-recruiting assistants. So my hunch is that we still have one more recruiting assistant to hire, if that makes sense. I think Stu Durando actually tweeted that this week that he still had one recruiting assistant to hire. So we'll see who the last hire is on the staff to kind of make sense of it. But we also think it's been reported by West Pine Bills, but I don't think it's been made official yet that as director of player development, we're going to get Brett Putz from Eastern
Well,
Illinois. He
that's
worked,
not a nice thing to call him.
you know, it's not my name for him, Zach. It's
Okay.
apparently what his parents called him.
Ah, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think Brett's a perfectly fine name.
Yeah, Brett's a
Um,
great name.
he comes from Eastern Illinois. He worked for Schertz at Indiana State as an assistant to the head coach, again, a non-recruiting position. And then he won a JUCO D2 national championship at Des Moines Area Community College in 2021, came in third the following year. He played college ball at St. Cloud State up in Minnesota and started coaching there, then moved to Wayne State in Nebraska before going to Omaha, which is D1, and then Highland Community College and Chicago State. So he's been around quite a bit in his career so far. And assuming that news is correct, we still think that's one role left to fill. So we'll see who that is. But ton of coaching news this week, Zach.
Yeah, it's super interesting to see the staff he's putting together as guys that he has coached with in other places, like they've worked for him in other places, and he's bringing them kind of back together. I wonder if some of those guys left Indiana State, monetary career trajectory, and now with the resources here at St. Louis University, he can hire
Mhm.
them back.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's pretty clear that none of those guys were getting away from a bad situation or anything like that if they want to come work for him again. But yeah, I think as a head coach, you always have to be ready for your assistants to leave, right? And you have to be willing to let them go and do the moves that make the most sense for their careers. Give them a good letter of recommendation on the way out, and that's just the way the game is. We've talked about it last week. When you get into this gig, you have to be ready to move around a lot, a lot.
Pete, let's move on to the Jimmies and Joes on the court. Because we talk a lot about the X's and O's. But the Indiana State players, the current or the players for Indiana State from last year or this past season, as he said in his press conference, no surprise, Jaden Schertz will join his dad at SLU, as I would assume a walk-on.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. Was he a walk on at Indiana State? I'm not
Does
100% sure on that.
Are they were they able to give his son free tuition? Is that in the cards over there? I don't know.
Don't know. I really don't know how it works. Maybe they get in state for being residents for a certain period of time, right? In which case Indiana State's not it's pretty affordable. So anyway, like yeah, we knew he was coming. He had that good quote about I don't know why it's not getting the attention Tucker DeVries is, which is pretty funny. But an even bigger item of news, Zach, the entire Indiana State lineup went into the portal on Tuesday the 9th, as well as some of the reserves, but it seems like the starters are really the ones that we've been focused on.
Yes. By the way, Jaden Schertz played in he played 4 minutes max this season. So
Yeah.
yes, I believe he's a walk-on.
Yeah.
Robbie Avila, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Blurred, Larry Nerd,
Milk Chamberlain.
Milk Chamberlain.
There's like 25 of them.
Yeah. He entered the portal with a do not contact designation, Pete.
Yeah, and that's normally a pretty good sign, Zach. It normally means he's got a destination in mind, and based on the kind of the smoke that we've seen so far, you got to be pretty confident about where SLU stands with this one.
Yeah, I mean, there was that little rumor that he would visit Texas, but that turned out to be not the case. And he was spotted with friend of the show Ross Chaffetz on Saturday in Chicago. Sounds like they had a little lunchy.
Yeah, little get together.
Probably some great Chicago dogs standing on the street corner, I would assume.
I'm sure. Yeah, they went to the Wiener Circle or something like that, as somebody on Discord said, which I have been to, but I don't think that's a place you go to in the daytime. It's it's good stuff at 3 a.m. when you're coming out of the bar. But he's going to visit SLU this week. We know that much. So when you've got a do not contact designation, you're going to visit one place. You haven't heard anything else. I really think it's going our way, right? Yeah. I would be shocked if it didn't. And that's really exciting because of the 5 starters, I think he's probably the most important, the most exciting one in terms of Schertz's system. And not to mention, I mean, the guy's marketability, right?
Yeah, another guy visiting this week. We had to do an audible on how we kind of presented everybody. But another player visiting this week with Robbie Avila is Isaiah Swope, high school teammate of Robbie.
Yeah, and we've heard rumors that SLU's in great position here, and in addition to the fact that he's also visiting this week. Now, he did tweet out that he's still open to other options, right? He didn't specifically say, I'm visiting SLU, but open. He just said, my recruitment's open. So I think he's just kind of seeing what the lay of the land is, which is fine. But I have heard positive things about where we stand with him in the early going. And it's important to keep in mind that what's true one day might not be true the next. These situations move very, very quickly in the portal. One school gets a commitment from a guy, and that sets off dominoes like a coaching change, right? One school fills a point guard position, and that maybe was one of his favorites, and now the door's shut. It just goes that way. So we'll keep an eye on it, but in order of confidence, I don't have him as high as Avila.
There is a guy that a few P5 schools are very high on, and I think most Indiana State fans thought he was going to go P5 no matter what. And that is Ryan Conwell, who is a very similar player to Gibson Jimerson.
Yeah, and Conwell visited NC State this weekend, and I think he's one of those guys, like if you look at their starting lineup, you see guys who may have been sort of under-recruited or guys who are really fitting into Schertz's system well. And the question is, how many of those guys are just having their value, their abilities maximized within his scheme? And how many of them are guys that you can pull out of that and slot in a Power 5 team and they fit right in, right? And I think of all of them, Conwell is the most sure thing as the guy you can do that with. Now, for some reason, Indiana and Illinois fans seem to be clamoring for him on social media. And I know there's a lot of the group think that comes with fan bases on these things. Like once somebody says a name, they all come after him. It doesn't necessarily mean there's actual mutual interest between those guys. So we'll see what happens with his recruitment. NC State's the only one we know so far. Haven't linked him to a SLU visit yet. I don't know what's going on there, but obviously we'll be watching that one closely.
Julian Larry and Jason Kent visited Texas over the weekend. It was Larry who visited with Kent, not Avila. By the way, I learned how to say Avila. I had to watch a bunch of videos to not call him Avila. I had to get that out of my head.
Isn't there a small school spelled the same way?
Avila.
But
that sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
Are you turning into me?
No,
just saying saying random things.
No, when the first time I ever heard of him,
that's my role.
Avila as well, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what felt right to me. So.
And of course, Kent was supposed to visit SLU this week, but he will not be. And why is that, Pete?
He unfortunately committed to Texas over the weekend. I think it was Sunday morning that we found out. And yeah, you can't win them all. Texas, it has a brand new shiny arena. They've got more money than almost every other program in college sports, and they've got a coach under a lot of pressure. So yeah, yeah, Zach is doing horns down, and the entire state of Texas is
Also,
crying into a pillow right now.
yeah,
So,
and L's down too.
yeah. So we don't know what's next for Julian Larry, but for Jason Kent, good rebounder, good player. He would have been a nice fit here. But I think there have already been a couple people like West Pine Bills, for example, who said that Kellen Thames can maybe slot into what he did for Indiana State. So one of the things to keep in mind here is we don't need to get hung up on any individual player too much because we have more of a system kind of coach now, right? So,
I,
look, we know all these guys are hearing from other schools as well. We just have to get them on campus and make the pitch to keep the band or at least most of it together.
I think it's an added bit of fun for us uh, because us being me and you on the show, and then fans on a macro level.
Mhm.
Uh, the thing about Schertz being a system coach is that we can look at the player archetypes of his Indiana State teams and say, okay, that's what he wants to do. That's the kind of player he wants in
Yeah.
these roles. So you can look at a recruiter, or a transfer portal guy, and kind of plug them into where they fit in that role instead of saying, well, we need a point guard. Well, we need a couple wings. We need a big man. I really find this a lot easier to digest as a fan who may or may not know ball.
Yeah, that's well said, Zach. I agree completely. Right? Like that's so true that you're looking for. Yeah, you're right. You're just looking for like, hey, okay, we lost out on this guy. Who's another guy who can bring that to the table, right? Who's another a big who can
Who's another
fill
guy
that
that can
role?
45 cut?
Yeah, who can 45 cut? Who's a point forward? Who's a stretch five? Like we can look at the things that they do in their schemes and not necessarily worry about, is this now we're having to go to a replacement level player, a step down who maybe doesn't have the same ability. I think this is a scheme that sort of evens out those guys a little bit more. And it makes me very optimistic, and I'm not too bent out of shape over losing a guy like Kent, who early on we heard pretty good things about, in addition to the fact that he was going to visit SLU. We heard good things about how he felt about following Schertz, but look, Texas NIL is hard to turn down.
On Wednesday, well, this being news on Wednesday that affects kind of the situation with
Hmm.
probably their high school signees more than anything else.
Probably more, but there's always a chance that he can retain some existing players. Sure.
Well, I mean, the ones that maybe SLU had high interest in, I
Yeah,
should say.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Indiana State officially promoted Matthew Graves from interim head coach to head coach. He was the associate head coach under Josh Schertz. And this was a move Schertz endorsed after his press conference with the media.
Yeah, he really had nice things to say about Graves. I think it's probably what he wanted to happen. Assuming you can't bring the guy with you, but I've heard awesome things about Graves as a basketball mind, as a coach, as a guy. So I think it's a great hire. I think Indiana State did what they needed to do. This isn't, Jim Cruz being a caretaker for a couple seasons while you've still got Majerus's core around. I think
Which would have
Graves,
never happened.
yeah,
That would
I,
have
I
been
know.
done.
Graves is going to build his own thing, right? I think he's going to be a good coach there. So the question is, of all the guys who have entered the portal, is he going to be able to bring any back? And then the other question is, they've got three signed high school players, Zach, and is he going to be able to retain those guys, keep them committed to Indiana State, as opposed to having them get out of their NLIs and get back out there on the open market? And the answer is we really don't know yet, but if I were to guess of these three, Christian Nitu, 6'11" recruit from Canada, so far the signs point to him staying with Indiana State. Graves was his lead recruiter. And I think so far it seems like what we're hearing is that's the one that they have the highest level of confidence about. Right now, I went through these three guys last week, and I won't get too into like who they are and everything. But there's Robert Sean Birmingham, who's the tall wing shooter from Iceland. It's unclear what he's going to do. Haven't heard any indications yet. He is going to a prep school in North Carolina. And then Merritt Alderink, the kid from Michigan, from Western Michigan. There have been some recent follows between him and new members of the SLU staff, if they weren't already on social media. So it seems like there might kind of be I like some interest. They're at least opening that pipeline if he wants to pursue it. I don't think you can reach out to a guy who's signed, but if he wants to reach out to
That
them,
is interesting. I know I
they've given
hadn't
him the
thought of it.
ability to DM, right? So I don't know what Alderink's going to do either, right? I think he's probably got, some tough decisions to make, and yeah, but anyway, those are the three guys who I think Graves would probably like to keep around.
I think if you're Robert Sean Birmingham and you're not staying at ISU or coming to SLU, I think you should go to the place where you can have your name on the front and back of the jersey.
Which not UAB.
It would be UAB.
UAB would be.
Yeah. Yeah, Birmingham. Robert Sean
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Do they ever do a
I
Birmingham? I
think
was
they I
trying to
think they
picture
did.
them with a Birmingham
I think they
jersey though.
do. I'm picturing
Okay.
it. I can
All
see
right.
it.
Yeah, be a Blazer then, sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, Merritt Aldrink, again, we're not going to get into it, but it is interesting that he is following
Mhm.
or they're following each other. Let's talk about the players that never entered the portal from here, from St. Louis University.
That would be Larry Hughes and Kellen Thames. And I think a lot of SLU fans looked at them as guys that they would want to keep around, right? I know Thames in particular was in my top three of guys that I would want to keep on the roster. Hughes, I was not as confident about, but this is one of those situations where you have to trust Schertz's judgment on, right? Like, I think Hughes has all the pieces. I'd like to see him be more consistent, but neither of them ever went in the portal, and I think that's the only two guys on our whole roster who did not enter the portal and could have, right?
Yeah.
Like they were either out of the eligibility or they went in the portal.
I think the thing about Larry Hughes and Kellen Thames too is that they're both sons of serious basketball talent, basketball players that have been through this process before, especially Larry Hughes. I mean, his dad knows how to get better. His dad knows how to work and knows
Yeah.
what it takes. And I think it's the kind of kind of dad that will keep Larry grounded and kind of guide him through the process of moving into a system coached team.
And that system just happens to generate a lot of open looks from three. A
Yes.
lot. And Larry Hughes, when he's feeling it, right?
Yeah.
And so if he can be more consistent at both ends, he's going to get a lot of good looks on offense. A guy like Kellen Thames, who's so versatile. The other thing that this offense does is give you a lot of looks at the basket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those it doesn't do much in the mid range. And
No.
and these are two guys who really make sense for what he's trying to do. They've got good size at their positions, and I think Thames's versatility really makes him intriguing in this offense.
I mean, can you imagine some back cuts and 45 cuts to Kellen Thames?
Dude can finish.
I
We saw him really attempt some ridiculous finishes this year. Sometimes he pulled them off, sometimes he didn't. But I think he's probably going to get a little more, a little less traffic in front of him when he's going to the basket. I'll put it that way.
He's also the kind of guy that can, in a pinch, break down the defense by himself.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you one guy that neither of us wanted back, but it sounds like he's coming back. No, I'm kidding. It's Gibson Jimerson. Of course, we wanted his ass back.
Yeah, of course. Because like you look at the shot chart of a Josh Schertz offense and you go, oh my God. Like, can we get him some looks from three that don't involve him having his jersey tugged all over the court or having someone like, like I don't know, glued to him down the floor? The idea of what Jimerson might be able to do when you go down like you did a YouTube rabbit hole and watch a lot of his offensive sets. I mean, just plug Jimerson into that and think about what he's going to get this year and Man, oh man, is it a delightful thought.
One thing I will say is I don't necessarily think that getting Jimerson says anything about getting Conwell or being able to go get Conwell. I really could see Gibson Jimerson, a guy who's been in college as long as he has, a
Mhm,
guy who's never really won,
mhm.
and a guy who's played 39 minutes a game, was in games through blowouts against,
Yeah,
taking a bit of a play cut, if you will. Like I could see that. Like if I'm him, I'm like, you get me more open looks and I don't have to like kill myself for 40 minutes. Hell
yeah,
yeah. I'll
yeah.
come back for some NIL money.
I think that's true, and we still have a lot of the roster to fill. So we don't exactly know what it looks like yet, but I absolutely think this is one of those sort of like think about all the legacy moves that players make in the NBA, right? Like I'll take a lesser role and go chase a ring or something like this.
Yeah.
In Jimerson's case, he's already got relationships and comfort and all of the things that you build up when you're at a place for 5 years of college, and now you add a completely different offensive scheme that's going to give him some looks. And if you say like, "Hey, man, your position on the depth chart." Or not the depth chart necessarily, but your overall position in terms of minutes, scoring, etc., might change a little bit. But like you said, we have a better chance to win, and you're going to have a lot more looks,
Yeah.
easy looks than before. I really think it makes a lot of sense for him to jump on that.
And I think I don't know what his value would be on the open market. I do think he's a fantastic player and an absolute sniper. But on a P5 team, a winning P5, I mean, he's kind of a fringe starting lineup guy, or a 3 and D guy. Well, he's not really a D guy, but I
But
think really you're
but
looking at,
if you went to a place like Virginia, right? Like
yeah,
that's everybody's a and D guy there because they have
yeah,
such a defensive system, right? So his shooting at a place like that, that's always been one that we thought of as maybe a potential
yeah.
poacher for him, right?
But I think, you're looking at the same minutes and probably the same, if he takes a play cut, like you're looking at the same minutes you would get if you would have transferred anyway.
Right. That's
And
right.
you're still getting paid regardless. So why not stay at the place you're already comfortable with and not, I mean, sure, you could want to change a scenery, but I don't think that's ever been in the cards for him. Like, I don't think a change of scenery would have been the reason he left.
Right. Yeah. I think everything, that we've said so far makes sense, but we know he heard from a lot of Power Five schools. The question is what the NIL offers actually looked like. And those may not have been what he was used to.
Schertz said we are going 3 for 3 with the guys who are here that fit our culture. Of course, that's great to hear, Pete.
It is. It is. I mean, he's wanted all three of these guys. That's what you want to hear. Like we're not just leaving a guy around because it's easier that way or whatever. I mean, he said 3 for 3, which means it kind of feels like they had these three targeted, or that after his initial conversations, it was like, these are the three guys I want. These are the three guys I've watched film on, and I want to keep around. So the other side of that coin, Zach, is that it means all of the other players weren't necessarily part of that targeted grouping, right? So it seems to shut the door on anyone else from last season's team returning.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we could talk about the walk-ons, and I think one of the interesting things that happened this week was that someone reshared a video of Svet Sodorov
Mhm.
from practice. Well, I don't even think he reshared. I think it was the first time it was shared, but
No, I don't know about that because I definitely
he's
shared
only
some
been here
video.
for a year though.
I shared some video on him when
Okay.
he came in.
Well, okay. They shared a video. These were practice videos though.
Oh, practice. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant from like high
Yeah,
school.
no, the video of Svet was from
Yeah.
in
From
practice.
in practice.
So it
Gotcha.
was his new transfer portal highlight tape,
I see.
which is a completely interesting new part of the transfer portal, is seeing all these practice videos.
Mhm.
And I thought it was interesting to kind of look back and see the matchups. But to the point I'm actually trying to make is that Svet Sodorov could kind of ball out.
Yeah, and he has that like tall shooter kind of thing
Yeah.
that Schertz likes.
He can pass.
Yeah,
He's
I
got a
know.
bit of a game, and I am kind of annoyed that he never got into a game.
I mean, did we have any opportunities last season? It's not like we ever got blown out.
No, we never got blown out. There was no opportunity to get anybody
Yeah,
else in a game.
why would you put the walk-ons in when you're down 20 when you leave your starters in and maybe you can get that down to 12 to 15?
To try,
Hmm?
I have no
Come
idea.
on, come on.
That's dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Yeah, come on, Zach.
No, yeah. So I mean, I thought he could have fit the system. I wouldn't mind see him stick around as a walk on and see what happens. I think that would be decent idea for him.
Yeah.
Um, but we don't know what he'll end up doing, nor are we really sure about the rest of them. Lamont Evans, Phil Jones, Alex Noakes. One of those two, I can't remember if it was Lamont Evans or Phil Jones, was with TJ at the women's game on Saturday last
Yeah,
week.
they're I want to say I can't remember who it was either. Those guys are a similar size to
Yeah.
both guards, a little bit shorter. We also don't know what Jaquavis Williford is going to do
I'm
yet.
not even sure he exists.
He's still, I know he's a bit of a ghost and he's pulled back from social media lately, but at some point, like the paperwork's going to have to be filed one way or the other. He's either staying or going, right? So we'll eventually find out. But it's been silent. We don't yet know what he's going to do. He's the one guy that SLU signed in the falls. Just as a reminder.
Vegas kid. We got a commitment, Pete, on a visit.
We got a commitment. So we've gone through the Indiana State players, Zach. We've gone through the SLU players. Now we got to go through the new names, right? Who are
Yes.
not coming from SLU or Indiana State. And the first one under this category of people who have visited or are visiting, he visited and he committed. And his name's Max Picar. He visited this weekend, committed Saturday morning. He's a 6'11 forward from the Netherlands. He plays at Sunrise Christian Academy in Kansas. Really long and lean, but looks like a fit. He's fluid. He gets to the rim. He shoots from outside. He blocks shots. He did have an offer from Indiana State along with Penn State, St. Bonaventure, Sam Houston State, Middle Tennessee, and Idaho State. So Schertz was familiar with this guy. He's been recruiting him since November. He took 3 other visits before SLU, and I don't know if he had planned any others afterwards, but this was it. He visited with his mom, who flew over from the Netherlands. His dad, Marco, played at Dayton in the 90s, Zach. I don't know
Where?
how do we feel about that?
What's a Dayton? Oh, by the way, can we talk about the straight criminality out of Dayton fans this week? We need to
I
talk
mean,
about that. We need to talk about that in a bit.
all right, all right. I'll put a pin in that one. Put a pin
By
in
the
that
way,
one.
I did really. I don't care. Marco's a Billiken now. He's not. He's
He's
not
a
a
Billiken
flyer.
now.
Yeah.
Well, I think the comparison I would make is like, look, Darth Vader's son
Yeah.
joined the Rebel Alliance,
You're a
and look,
nerd.
he was the good guys, right? Like he joined the good guys, and just because his dad worked for the evil empire, I don't think we need to hold it against the son.
Or that he kissed his sister, but that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
Um,
But he had a good quote, Zach. He said, "Coming from Europe, I saw the way he played, and it fits me best. It's a different offense than most colleges play. I was looking for the right fit. He showed me all the tape, and for me, it's an offense with versatility. That's the main reason I chose St. Louis. The facilities are amazing. I think it's a perfect fit for me. Love all
we
of
think
that.
it's a perfect fit for you then too, Max
Yeah,
Picard. Which, by the way, Max Picard, I just automatically think he like drives Formula One. Like
that is a good. Yeah,
that's
right. Um,
uh but no,
he's
I love that he went and did like the whole rigmarole with pictures at Bonaventure, posted on his Instagram, and then we swoop him.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
I don't mind that at all
Eat
either.
it, little Bona X.
Yeah, and SB unfurled.
Yes.
He sees himself as a 4. He says that putting on weight and getting stronger is important now, which if you found any video on him, you know what we mean. He is very lean. But you can't teach that size, that length.
Can't
Currently,
teach
he's
it.
only the big man on the roster, so we need to hang on to him. But the most important thing, Zach, is we don't even have to take down our Netherlands flag.
No, we don't.
Stefan Bussel leaves, Max Picar comes in, we keep it up.
The band budget is safe.
That's right. No new flags. Keep that
No
one
new
going.
flags. We got some more visits this week. A couple of these guys are really intriguing.
They really are. Another guy who was around this weekend is a 6'3" guard from Creighton named Josiah Dotzler. So he's a freshman with 3 years left. He was offered by Indiana State out of high school. Another guy Schertz recruited before, I'm familiar with. So you're seeing a theme here. But he went for his highest level offer, quite frankly. And he wound up only playing 77 minutes in 19 appearances this season. He is quick and skilled, though. He's got pretty good size for a guard. And we know he visited this weekend. So he's an intriguing guy. He's coming down from Creighton. We'll see. We'll see if he joins the roster. We're gonna need some ball handlers. We're gonna need some guards for sure.
Amari Kotri. This one I thought it was a transfer at first
Yes.
because I thought he was at St. Thomas in Minnesota, but that's not the case.
And I saw St. Thomas more, and I assumed it was the small college across the river from Cincinnati where some of my wife's cousins went. And it is not. It's St. Thomas More High School in Milwaukee. But McCautry is versatile, right? He plays the 1 to the 3. He's a 6'6". I guess you would probably call him a wing. He can play the point. He won a state championship this season, and the only loss his team had was to the undefeated Wisconsin Lutheran team, which is they play in a different class in Wisconsin, so they could both win state titles. But whatever. But that team is led by Duke signee Con Knuppel, who's got just a great Wisconsin name. His other offers are Arizona State, Arkansas State, Grambling State, Indiana State, Louisiana Tech, Miami, Ohio, and UW Milwaukee. He is visiting Xavier soon. DePaul is interested. So he's definitely one of these guys. As spring has rolled around, his value seems to be going up. The intrigue seems to be going up. He's a nice looking player, though. I like him a lot.
Here's an interesting one for all you St. Louis centric Billiken fans. Connor Turnbull, 6'10", 225. He's a forward from Butler, originally from the St. Charles area, went to Fort Zumwalt North.
Yeah, and SLU offered him out of high school too. He's a guy that we seem to turn up the heat on later. And by then, Butler was in the mix, a couple other schools in the mix, and he did call it for Butler. But he only appeared in 9 games for them this season after playing 22 as a freshman because he hurt his elbow in mid-December. I haven't heard about a medical red shirt, but at 9 games, I think you qualify for one, which would mean he would have 3 years of eligibility left. So he's also visiting this week, I want to say on Wednesday. I think he'd be a better fit for a Schertz team than Thad Matta's Butler team, quite frankly. He stretches the floor with his shooting, but he's also comfortable around the rim at both ends. Good finisher, good rim protector. I like the fit here.
Here's another. We've got a few guys. The next 3 all could literally be the same person.
They're all pretty similar, and it's going to be interesting to see how
and physically.
And physically, yeah.
I mean, I think there's 8 pounds that separates the 3 of them, and it's right. All one of them.
Yeah,
and it's. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, so the frames, the length will be a little bit different, but they're all basically 6'9", and they're all 220 to 228. The second one I'll mention is the biggest of the 3 in the weight class. But Grant Newell is a sophomore forward from Cal, originally from the Chicago area. He averaged 5.5 points, 3.5 rebounds a game. He shoots from outside, so kind of an inside-out player. He's not the most efficient player. Like, I'd like to see his percentages be a little higher. But coming from the Pac-12, played good minutes there as Jack Godar reminded me. So he could actually be a pretty decent prospect. What he said was a guy who played these minutes in the Pac-12 is somebody you have to look at least, given how good Kwani was at VCU this year. So that's a fair point, Jack. He does have interest from Big East, Mountain West, American Conference schools, a few other stragglers as well. The second one is a name that we know because SLU kind of sniffed around a little bit, and he's from the other side of Missouri. Cam Manyewu is what do I have? I plugged in a weird note here. He's visiting on April 19th.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I plugged that in.
Okay, thanks. He's a freshman forward from Wyoming. He averaged about 7.5 points, 6.7 rebounds, more of an at the basket scorer than Newell was. He's from the Kansas City area and originally committed to Indiana State, but then he backed out when the assistant who recruited him left and went to Wyoming. So he followed that guy out to Wyoming. So this is another guy Schertz has familiarity with, right? He's got a pretty broad range of interest right now, actually with a decent amount of overlap with Newell. So a lot of Big East, Mountain West, American schools, kind of like that. A few other odds and ends, but really intriguing player. And then the third Zach is a name that SLU fans know, Jalen
It's
Deloach.
very intriguing.
Yeah, and he'll only have 1 year left because he's a junior forward from Georgia. But SLU fans remember him better from VCU, where he played his freshman and sophomore years. So he averaged just 3.6 and 3.3 at Georgia this year, but he was more of like a 10 and 7 guy in 24 and a half minutes per game as a sophomore at VCU. He's slated right now to visit SLU on the 28th and 29th. So 2 weeks out, basically. But you never know. We may, Schertz is giving himself until June, he said, to kind of put this roster together. So even though that's right before the portal closes, this this could still be he could still happen, right? Like whenever somebody's got a visit that far into the future, I'm a little worried, somebody else gets to him first, but we'll see how that shakes out.
I really am intrigued by Jalen and Cam between these, last three. I really like, I mean, Jalen, obviously, he's got a lot of goodwill, good, bad will
Yeah. Right.
from VCU.
I don't think
Like,
we loved him when we played against him.
no, but I would love to have him.
Sure. Right.
Nothing. Okay. We talked about kind of the transfer portal guys, the recruits, but incoming, we don't have anything confirmed yet.
No,
No commitments.
just the visits that we just listed above.
Outgoing, we learned a little bit more this week, including one of our favorites is not going to be returning.
Yeah, I know. Well, first, Brad Azawiro is heading
That's
out, which
that is not the one I was thinking of.
no, we thought that was going to happen. Abu Magasa is also heading out. That's new this week. We didn't really get a chance to get to know him, right? So it's always a shame to see him go, but we never got attached there. But the one that got to us was Georgie Churchich,
Yeah.
Zach. He not only did he enter the portal, but he's already announced where he's going, and he's going to follow Chris Harriman to Charleston. And I don't know about you. I mean, that was one of the guys that I had kind of targeted.
Swaggy C.
Yeah, I was like, if you keep him around at kind of the fringe of your rotation, and that's a guy who not a big NIL check you have to cut there.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of fits with
real
what
value.
Schertz does. Yeah, right. A value pick. But I think he has a chance to tear it up at Charleston. I can't wait to see what he does there.
By the way, the funniest part about Brad Azawero entering the portal was Tim Dalker retweeting our tweet
Yes.
about it being best for all parties involved.
Yes. Yeah. Which I think was probably also true when Dalger left.
Yes.
So game recognized game there.
Yeah. Bruce Zhang entered the portal. The fan favorite wasn't actually, we knew he was going last week, but it didn't actually enter till this week.
Right. He didn't file the paperwork till this week, so it didn't really hit the wire.
Paperwork and Bruce Zhang.
I know. Yes. Little flashback there. Parker, Medley, Van Boosel, we know they're all still in the portal. And as we said before, it sounds like none of these guys are going to be returning. We'll keep you updated when we hear news on any of them, though. And obviously, we wish them all the best in their next steps. We just don't expect it to be steps back to SLU's campus.
As far as SLU coaches go, or the ones that were on staff when Travis Ford was let go, Tate, Thomas, Nunez, Ziagua, Lewis. Sounds like none of them will actually be returning, Pete. Tate was in attendance Thursday night, but he's no longer listed on the SLU Athletics website in any capacity. So I got to think that's kind of gives some finality to Tate's position.
Yeah, and the new coaches are on there, right? So
right.
So the directory also has Brandon Courtney and Jordan Kudrowski as the senior graduate managers, which is what they did last season, as of the time we record anyway. That can always change. But that was along with Schertz and the new assistants and the office coordinator, Livy Sant. So it does seem to be kind of an indicator, Zach, but he's still around. I mean, you said he was at Humphreys, he was at the press conference, he's hanging around. I don't know what the plan is, and we know Schertz has one spot. Um, it seems
and
like
and a strength coach.
and a strength coach.
You
Yeah.
gave me shit for that earlier this week. I was like, I wonder what he's doing with the strength coach. You're like, you would.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know how many people are asking that question yet, but no. So like we said before, like we'll keep people updated. We just don't have any news yet on those guys.
Pete, are you ready to eat crow? Are you hungry?
I am Zach. Yeah, I have to.
This is the
Last
most
week,
ridiculous thing ever.
it's stupid, but we've been kind of covering the coaching carousel and its developments as we've been waiting on Schertz, right? Like we had that month where we're just waiting on our guy to come over, and in the meantime, there's all these other coaching moves happening. And so, of course, last week I say Calipari is not going to Arkansas. Like these people are crazy or whatever. And by the time the episode dropped the next morning, all hell had broken loose, and he was indeed going to Arkansas. And so, yeah, I have to say, like, look, I don't know anything about UK and their situation, and a lot of my friends here are big UK fans. Some of my wife's family went to UK. Both of her parents' families are from the northern Kentucky, and so yeah, there's a lot of UK fan nonsense that I hear, but I did not see that happening, and it's pretty wild. So after a bunch of higher profile coaches said no to the Kentucky job, by the way, Mark Pope from BYU and the Kentucky class of '96, as we said earlier, that team said yes. So he's the new guy there, and I guess BYU is now the highest profile open job. Um, I guess.
Yeah, it's so weird to watch this Calipari and Kentucky stuff go down because I think a lot of it has parallels to Travis Ford and SLU in a lot of weird ways where it felt like the Calipari situation this year ended almost in a way that learned from Travis Ford this year.
Hmm.
Whereas things got so bad with Kentucky and the NIL and Calipari that it just wasn't going to work anymore. Um,
Yeah.
where, it's kind of the same thing with SLU in this past season where it got so bad. And I think certainly that people sandbagged on support for the program under Travis Ford in this past year that caused what we saw on the court. Obviously, Travis Ford was the steward of that and the person that was responsible for you know, what eventually happened. But I mean, this Calipari decided he was going to bail, like because that's the resolution that could have happened with SLU in some sort of way last year. But I just don't. I don't know. Well, I don't know if you see it similar, but
It is similar, and the other similarity is a gigantic buyout, which in Calipari's case was the biggest of all time in college basketball coaching, at least to that point, right? Like I think they were on the hook for at least $33 million to buy him out, and I mean like they had signed him to basically what was a lifetime contract, and it had all of these provisions that he could retire into a cushy job within the school. Um, really, really nice deal that he had gotten. But it did get to the point where rather than just say, okay, I'm retired, pay me, he went and took a job somewhere else, which, look, Arkansas obviously backed up the money truck and is paying him a gigantic salary over the next 5 or 6 years. And I guess technically the amount of that contract will be more than he would have made if he just told UK to buy him out. But I can tell you from where I'm sitting, the difference between, 45 million and 33 million is not big enough to make me want to keep working. That's that's where I'm at, Zach. But these guys just have different mentalities than I do, I guess.
is there a buyout involved then at all? I'm so confused by this.
From what? From
Arkansas,
Kentucky?
does Arkansas have to pay Kentucky?
Of that, I should know, but I
Would it
don't
be a
know
different
for sure.
buyout for another? Like,
I
is the
think there's
buyout
probably a
different
low, yeah, I don't know. There's probably a lower dollar amount to buy out for another school to buy out his contract
versus the
rather than
school
the school to
buyout?
tell him, take a hike, here's the rest of your contract,
Yeah.
right? Like I think that's probably the difference.
Right. Um, moving back to the world of St. Louis University Billikens, uh, let's talk about the coverage of the Billikens. And that's to say St. Louis Post-Dispatch and specifically Stu Durando. Things have changed.
And changed quickly because not only what we're seeing from Stu in the past week is his coverage of the coaching change and everything that goes with it, but Zach, he's like breaking recruiting news for the first time in what feels like forever. I mean, the whole world has changed since the last time we actually got like real recruiting news from Stu, but he's been the first one to say in a lot of these cases who's visiting, when they're visiting, how many visitors we're gonna have. It's been incredible to see this happen again, and I don't know how much of this is just the difference in how Schertz operates a program. I thought it was a little bit funny, like we said earlier in the show about the press conference, and them saying how Stu has had to put up with a lot of no comments from Slew in the past month. So I don't know if they're throwing some bones his way for that reason. But I really just think that it's a difference in the way the program approaches sharing information from what it did under Ford, right? I mean, it's night and day. And now Stu actually has some stuff to give us.
Speaking of recruiting info to give, I got some intel on Josiah Dotzler from a friend of mine that's my friend's wife, who's a big Creighton fan, said that he's good, a lot of potential, just young. Creighton fans were upset he put his name in the portal. His brother was a Creighton point guard in a beloved Omaha family.
Yeah, so his brother played there, it looks like from 2005 to 2009. And if I understand correctly, he is one of 14 children.
Jesus.
Yeah, for one of 14, and he's already engaged, as you saw
Yes.
on Instagram. So pretty interesting profile here. But that is an interesting note, Zach, that Creighton didn't want to see him go in the portal, for a guy who just didn't play much as a freshman. So I guess there is some potential here for sure.
Um, but let's talk about, the amount of information. It's really important. And the best way to kill a program in the eyes of fans is to really lose and not only lose, but keep them cut off from information. And I think what we're seeing from Josh Schertz is a sign of a change in operation procedure. And I think it's a welcome one at that.
It is. You just said to kill a program, lose, and then don't give the fans anything, right? And that's what we had last year. It was like, not only are we losing, we had to take the only information we were getting was trust us, we have a plan. And that's not how it works. Now, like what is the plan? Be specific. What are you going to do? Because like if you expect me to keep buying season tickets to watch this crap, I need to know that a turnaround is happening pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
And so it's those two things at the same time that we just saw attendance crater because they don't want to watch that and they don't know anything. You're not giving them any information. So I think we probably are in agreement that more information is generally good for the program. It keeps fans engaged, keeps your name out there more for like a more casual audience. Recruits see your name, they get more impressions, as they call them on social media, more often. It just keeps attention on your program, and you can build from that. And it's just the opposite of what we were seeing before, and it's very refreshing from our
Uh,
standpoint.
well, speaking of refreshing and transparency, Pete, uh, you're getting full transparency when you get Two Men in a Garden products because there are no additives in this. This is all natural. This is all good for you stuff.
It really is, and I gotta say, speaking of refresh, I think my stomach is grumbling right now because I'm thinking about it. The jar of pickles that I opened 2 days ago from Two Men in a Garden are the crunchiest I've ever had from them. Because this is small batch, handmade, all natural stuff. You do get a slight variance in batches, right? And that's kind of for me. I wouldn't call it inconsistency. It's just very subtle variances where I go, ooh, this is a
It
good one.
keeps you engaged.
Keeps me engaged, Zach. It keeps me coming back for more. The crunchiest ones I've ever had. This jar, I'm gonna have to go get myself a late night snack when we're done recording. Um, but you got to head over to twomeningarden.com, get yourself some, see what I'm talking about. Last time I got these pickles, I said they were really dialed in, the best flavor profile they've ever had. In addition to that, this time the crunch is really there in a really satisfying way. I see your finger raised, Zach. Are you changing the subject on me? Or are you adding something
No,
there?
well, I'll get to it. By the way, I think we need to make sure Coach Josh Schertz get some pickles. Joel, you need to get this guy some pickles
Yeah. Yeah,
and some salsa.
he loves the local stuff. We got to hook him up.
Yes.
But if you want to hook yourself up, get these products anywhere in the St. Louis area at grocery stores, or head over to twomeningarden.com. Go get some of these pickles right now. Um, like I said, crunchiest I've had yet. They're fantastic.
By the way, this is so much fun following recruiting now because it looks like Cam Manyewu will actually visit tomorrow and visit Drake on the 17th.
I think that's the third time that you've popped in with a piece of information that we've gotten since the show
Has
started
started.
recording. And
Yes.
that's where we are right now. You and I can't just sit down and like shut our other stuff off and talk. Like we still have information popping
Well, I
up.
can't do
Like,
that any day of the week, but like, yes.
no, it's true, but like now we actually have a reason to. It's not
Right.
like you going completely.
Oh, hey, did you see Kentucky? Did you hear Arkansas and Cal are talking?
Yeah, or like reacting to the Blues giving up a goal in Edmonton or something.
That's relatable. Yeah, no, it's wild how quickly things are moving. And I thought it was interesting. I guess I forgot to mention the STL Today post by one of the Bens on the portal
Mm.
and how the hypocrisy of the portal. I think both of us have been talking for a while about how the portal needs some work. And I think player not the eligibility, the immediate eligibility needs to be looked at, I think, going forward, because I mean, you should be able to transfer wherever you want. It's just if you transfer more than once, you may be looking at eligibility issues. I think that should be the case just to kind of slow the stuff down a little bit. Anyway, we got very little women's basketball, which is kind of refreshing after the last couple of weeks.
It's refreshing that we don't have to go through and recap like 3 games.
Yes.
And the other reason it's refreshing is because we've got some like really cool stuff going on.
Yes. By the way, Peyton Kennedy, where the hell, like this, somewhere in the last month or so, she stole Charles Barkley's talent or something. Like she's one of the aliens from Space Jam. I don't know what she did. Like she's always been good. She's always been a great
She's been
3-point
very
shooter.
good. Yeah.
Been a great 3-point shooter, but at some point she found her game and is breaking records left and right now.
It's funny because this season, what we saw is okay. So last season, right, we had Kyla McMakin, who was the scorer. She would shoot from anywhere, anytime. She didn't put up good percentages. Transition to this year, and they're more of a two-headed monster, right? Kennedy, McMakin, you never knew which one was going to lead the team in scoring. And it was almost like a passing of the torch. Kennedy got more and more and more involved as the season went on. Her numbers went up. And McMakin, all season long, her efficiency was way better than it was the year before. She was taking fewer shots. She was taking good shots. And Kennedy, by the way, is a really consistent shooter,
Yes.
right? Like she spots up, she squares up. Just a very good, consistent form every time. McMakin likes to do more of like an Iversonian fade to her left, fade to her right. She takes some pretty low percentage shots sometimes, and as good as she can be when she's feeling it, there's less consistency there. But it really did feel like, Zach, by the end of the season, it was a passing of the torch from that fifth-year player to the player who has a chance to come back next year. And it was a really cool thing to see. And yeah, I would say Kennedy has really come into her own lately.
It felt like she was starting to get kind of that inside game that we were missing from Brooke Flowers. a little bit on the offensive end.
Hmm.
Feels like she was scoring the points that Brooke was getting last year. So feels like they filled that gap more recently towards the end of the year. But this is wild because if you told me that Kyla McMakin would set the record for points scored in a season and then have that record be beaten by Peyton Kennedy.
The next year. Yeah, it's wild. And the even better news, Zach, that 677 point record next year, she's going to have a chance to break it again because she announced that she would be returning for one more season. It's huge news for SLU. She has all conference potential next season. Just fantastic news because we didn't know if she'd be back or not.
Yeah, they're gonna have to find a way to replace Julia Martinez. Although she did kind of, I think it's encouraging for some reasons that she kind of faded into a secondary role this season. Because it kind of signals that those that will be here next year will be ready to carry the torch.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, part of that was injury related. She started coming off the bench, and then Tillit really liked what she brought in that role and kind of that six-player role. And she's still like, look, she might play 25 minutes, she might play 35 minutes off the bench. You never really knew, but nonetheless, she kind of was used her that way down the whole stretch. Now, two people who won't be back next season, Mia Nicastro, Ashley Connor, are both in the portal. They entered in late March and they weren't traveling for all the NIT games, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. But the good news is around noon on Saturday, Coach Tillett tweeted, Billiken incoming, which she likes to do when they've got a commitment. And as of yet, and what I like to do, like on Twitter, is I'll search a lot of St. Louis commitment and like different word combinations that might give me something. And I wasn't able to kind of sleuth who this might be. Women's basketball blog, which is a great site, by the way. If you're trying to find this information, doesn't have it yet. So we don't know who it is, but we do know there is somebody coming in. I would assume it's a transfer. Like I would think at this point that it's not a high school player, but we don't know yet.
Let's see. Yeah, it could be Haley Van Lith, Pete.
I know that you're trying to will that into
Yes.
existence.
By the way,
I would be fine with it if we replace, Martinez with Van Lith. I think that's a good solid replacement.
by the way, Mississippi State, not the most intelligent of fan bases, really took me seriously there.
Yeah, they replied like she's in Starksville this weekend, and you were just like, I at first I started to reply, I was like, this is not worth it.
No, it's not. It's
We don't
not.
need to we don't need to reply to our obvious joke.
Let's talk some Billy ball, Pete.
Yeah, really nice week. Really nice week for a team that had I don't want to say it's like gotten in a slump or anything like that, but they definitely came back down to earth a little bit recently. And
Some bad vibes though to start off the week. By the way, the light. By the way, first of all, we got to talk a little bit about this. We've never really broached the subject, but we did actually, I think, but I don't think we've really gone deep on it. But the lights. So the lights were supposed to be replaced this year. They didn't budget for installation after they were donated. So the Billikens have been playing without lights the whole year, playing day games. I guess they had to turn them on Tuesday, the 9th. And one of them exploded over the Southern Indiana dugout. And glass went everywhere. Apparently they had to clean it off the field. Not a great look. These lights should have been replaced. So,
and this is one that just popped, right? It wasn't like the natural where it got hit by a ball.
Right. No. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So I mean, a little cold water on the excitement of this week in Billiken athletics. But it didn't, slow down the Billiken offense as all the other indignations haven't this season.
No, if anything, it slowed down Southern Indiana, and our sincerest apologies to the Screaming Eagles. They don't deserve to be showered in glass when they visit.
So that's why they call them the Screaming Eagles, because lights explode and glass falls on them. They just scream.
I did see a bald eagle up close, and at the state park we went to watch the eclipse. They have like this raptor.
Did you go
center.
see the eclipse?
Zach, it's only two more times I'm gonna bring it up, but they had this Raptor Center with all these like owls and eagles, and I can confirm that bald eagles very annoying screamer. Like they really, I don't know how to describe their squawk, but it's really irritating sound.
So what you're saying is that it is a bald, it's bald and it screams really loud. Are you sure it's not a sports fan?
Zach, yes. It's the symbol of our nation, and
Yes.
it has a very irritating screech. So the Screaming Eagles are a real thing, not just a roller coaster
Okay.
at Six Flags. But you're right, SLU beat them 13-5 on Tuesday the 9th. USI tied it at 5 after a 4-run top of the 6th, but SLU answered with 2 in the bottom of the inning. They added one more in the 7th. They put it away with 5 more in the 8th. Tyler Fogarty's solo shot in the 2nd made it 1-0 SLU. He went 3 for 4 with 2 runs and 4 RBIs. Austin Newegg hit a 3-run moonshot in the 4th. Didn't knock out any lights, though. He also scored twice. And then Drew Winters and Graham Mastros each went 2 for 4 with 2 runs. SLU used 6 pitchers in the midweek game. Dawson Smith started, gave up 1 in 4 innings. The next 5 guys pitched 1 inning apiece. Jackson Yarberry gave up 4 in the 6th, but still got the win because SLU broke the tie in the bottom of the inning. So pretty weird happenstance there, but nonetheless, really big win. And then Zach, Davidson baseball, usually a pretty solid team. And you got to come off mute to cover this one because SLU welcomed them for a 3-game series this weekend.
Yeah, the first game was a 15-6 win on Friday the 12th. By the way, thank you for reminding me about my mute. Just like the Cardinals on Friday, the Billikens got out to a 6-0 lead, and just like the Cardinals, they blew that lead. Yet, they proceeded to win the game because college baseball is crazy.
Yeah.
Davidson got 2 back in the 5th and tied it in the 7th, but the Billikens answered with 3 in the bottom of the 7th to take a 9-6 lead. They got six more in the bottom of the 8th to put it out of reach. 4 home runs for the Billikens. Easton Richter, Drew Winters, Ethan Sitzman, and Graham Mastros. They were all 2-run bombs, except for Richter's, which was a solo shot in the 1st. The stats are gaudy, to say the least here. Most guys scored twice or more. Sitzman and Mastros led with 3 hits apiece. Sitzman also had 4 RBIs to lead the Billikens. Jackson Holmes struck out 7 in 6 innings. Jack Weber came on for a couple batters, which were unfortunately both hits. 2 more runs scored, but Ethan Bell finished the game off and got the win. Jackson Holmes was dealing in his 6 1/3 innings.
Yeah, he really was. And I'm glad you said that because like one of the things that kind of gets lost in this narrative of this team this season is the pitching this week was fantastic. All 4 games, I think the pitching was really solid top to bottom. And I want to make sure those guys get their due because it wasn't just the bats this week, right? Zach, by the way, we have more breaking men's basketball news, but
Get them. What?
let's cover it. Let's cover it after we
What?
finish baseball.
What?
Let's 2 more baseball games. And then
Where
we'll
am I
cover it.
seeing this? Go ahead and where am I going to find it while you
Go to Discord or Twitter and you'll see it. Okay. Anyway,
right.
I'm going to cover the last 2 baseball games while you look that up. 6-1 win on Saturday the 13th. SLU scored 3 in the 1st, 3 more in the 4th, and then gave up 1 in the 9th. Charlie Weber, another great pitching performance this week. 7 scoreless innings. Zach is not reacting to this, obviously. He struck out 8. He allowed just 4 hits and a walk. Owen Chaffin pitched the last 2 innings, struck out 2, and gave up 1 run. Ethan Sitzman led SLU with 3 hits and 2 runs. Patrick Closey, Tyler Fogarty each had 2 RBIs. And then on Sunday the 14th, they went for the sweep. 7-2 win. SLU kicked things off with a 5-run first inning. They loaded the bases, hit back-to-back singles, sac fly, double, and that's 5 runs. Davidson got 2 back in the top of the 3rd, but SLU answered twice to recapture the 5-run lead, and that was it. Drew Winters led SLU with 2 hits and 3 RBIs, and then 4 pitchers all went 2 to 2 2/3 innings, somewhere in there, to split the game up. Henry Littman started and gave up both runs. Jackson Yarberry got the win, and then Gray and Cunningham didn't allow a hit in the last 4 innings. to shut this one down and seal the sweep, Zach. Next up, SLU has a weekend series at Fordham on Friday the 19th through Sunday the 21st. And let's get that little men's basketball item out of the way before we get to softball.
Yeah, Julian Larry is off the board to Texas.
Yeah, he was the other one who visited along with Jason Kent, so it looks like they got both of them.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Swope and Creamer the prize.
Yeah, and then Conwell's the wild card. But we were told we could get as many as three or four of these players, and it looks like
That's still in
maybe
play.
it's three is in play, two is
Likely.
possible, one is very, very likely.
No.
So we'll see what happens.
Softball Wednesday's game at SEMO was rained out. The weekend series started off rocky with a 2-0 loss versus Rhode Island in game one on Saturday the 13th. The Billikens were held to 4 hits. Taylor Hockman was very good on the mound. Complete game, 2 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, 7 hits, but did not get the run support she needed in this one. However, Isabel Royal in game two did just barely. 2-1 win versus Rhode Island in game two on Saturday the 13th. Down 2-0 heading into the bottom of the 7th. Chloe Ryan tied it with an RBI single after Abby Mallow's bunt got Carson Janney over to second. Rhode Island changed pitchers at that point. Kelsey Etling singled. Jocelyn Abbott reached on a fielding error, and the bases were loaded. Kendall Johnson walked it off with a shallow pop fly to left. Isabel Royal was excellent. One earned run, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk in 7 innings. Pete, tell us about the rubber match.
It was another one that SLU walked off 4-3 on Sunday the 14th to get the series win. Jane Kaniski hit an RBI single in the first and a sac ground out in the 5th to give SLU a 2-0 lead. Then Rhodey took the lead with a 3-run 6th, and that held into the bottom of the 7th. With Carson Janney on third and Natalie Sullivan on second, Abby Ulsis hit a ground ball to the pitcher, who threw it wide past first base. Janney scored, Sullivan went to third, Ulsis went to second, and then Cammie Newbanks lined out to center field. Sullivan tagged and scored. Game over. They walked it off for the second straight day. SLU only had 5 hits on the day, and Ulsis had 2 of them. Isabel Royal gave up 3, struck out 3, walked 3 in 6 innings, and then Taylor Hockman came in and struck out 1 in a perfect 7th to get the win. Next up, Zach, they've got a doubleheader at Loyola on Wednesday the 17th before they head to George Mason for a 3-game series on Friday and Saturday.
Tennis, the men won 4-2 versus Duquesne in Dayton on Thursday the 11th. SLU lost in the 2 top single spots, but won in 3, 4, and 6, along with the doubles point to capture the win. Declan Townsend, Theo Ortiz, and Valentin Vasquez all captured singles victories, and Adam Bahoon won the first set in the number 5 position, but it went unfinished. They dropped a 7-0 decision at number 27, Illinois, on Saturday the 13th. Ortiz and Townsend kept their matches close. Andres Castellanos and Luca Leonardo were in a close doubles match that went unfinished. Next up, they'll play Lindenwood at Shaw Park Tennis Club on Wednesday the 17th. The women 4-3 loss at Dayton on Wednesday the 10th. Elizabeth Mintasova, Nora Hashem, and Sandra Ginis won in the 1, 2, and 4. SLU dropped the other 3 singles matches, and Dayton swept the doubles. 4-2 win versus Duquesne and Dayton on Thursday the 11th. The Billikens took the doubles point and then won in 1, 3, and 4 singles to take the 4-2 win. Mintasova, Alashina, and Ginis got the victories. The win moved them to 14-3 on the season. Next up, the Atlantic 10 Championship in Orlando on April the 24th through the 27th. Pete, let's talk about running and throwing and jumping.
Yeah, and they don't make it easy on us, Zach, because the track team was at 5 more events this weekend. 4 of them were in Southern California. 1 was over at SIUE. At SIUE, Jordan Cantola set a PR in the 1500. Bailey Wisdom set a PR in the discus throw. And then Aiden Martin won the 400 meter with a personal record of 48:30, the second fastest in school history. Out in California, the big event was the Brian Clay Invitational at Azusa Pacific University in Azusa, California, which is a little bit east of LA, Zach, a little bit more inland, to answer your question from last week. Bunch of PRs in this one. Journey Edmondson in the triple jump, Harrison Martinenko in the 800, Sonia Marin in the 1500, Star Scott in the 1500, just 2 seconds behind Marin. And then Libby Williams with the shot put, 12.3 meters, a new personal record. McKenna Paulson ran the 5K in 16:48.26, which is a season best for the team in addition to being a PR. They also had the Pacific Coast Invitational at Long Beach State. Evan Brenderman had a personal best in the long jump, 6.76 meters. Michaela McDowell and Emily Nichols had the top 2 times for the season in both the 200 and the 400. The 400 program record still stands, though they haven't gotten that one yet. Patricia O'Neill had a personal best in the 400 as well. Her name throws me off every time because one of my best friends is named Patrick O'Neill, and every time I see her name, I have to do a double take. They had another meet out at Long Beach State. They had another meet at Cal State Los Angeles. It's not quite clear which other marks were set at these two. We know Farola Med and Spencer Werner had personal best in the 5K this weekend. We probably skipped or missed a bunch more, but follow JBell30, Coach John Bell, head coach, on Twitter for his live updates from these events. And we're sorry to anyone whose wins or personal records didn't get covered. But next time, try not to go all over the country on us because it was a little hard to keep track of.
How dare they?
Yeah, I know, especially because they normally report on Sunday, and we're trying to throw the show together by that time. But point is, they're having a good season, and their Billiken alumni meet is the next event on Friday the 19th, Saturday the 20th. It'll be the second meet that they host this season. Zach, why don't you take it home?
Yeah, I think we talk about women's soccer next week.
There's no way we can cover that today.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
We're just about to hit the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, Pete, that's gonna do it for us. The week in Billiken athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, like, rate, comment. Please comment. If you're still here, you've already listened to 2 hours of us. Just a little comment down at the bottom. Pete, it's getting. I won't say that I have reached the point where I'm super still like it. I haven't been super excited to do the podcast, but we're getting back to that point where it is exciting to hop on here on a Sunday night. And I think it's just going to get better and better. So with a little more enthusiasm this time, go Bills.
Go Bills.